Well, hello, and thank you to everybody for being here today. I'm pleased to be joined by Joe Cece, MLA for Calgary Buffalo, and also by Paula Hall, who's going to be talking to us in just a moment about her experiences. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are here today on the traditional territory of the signatories to Treaty 7, and to recognize the Métis people of Alberta who share a very deep connection with this land. Today, our healthcare system is facing an unprecedented level of crisis and emergency across multiple services. And because of this, receiving basic health services is becoming more about luck than good planning. So to tell us more, I would like to invite Paula Hall to talk about the experience that she and her daughter had in the health system earlier this week here in Calgary.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm Paula Hall, and I'm here today to share my 15-year-old daughter's experience with the healthcare system this week. Her story reflects just how much pressure the system is currently under. I'll start by saying I'm a mother of 4, and I've accessed services at the Alberta Childrens Hospital for the past 17 years. I have always had easy and effective access to the hospital emergency, inpatient, and outpatient services, until now. On Monday morning, around 5 a.m., my daughter started complaining about stomach pain. It got progressively worse through the morning. I called HealthLink around noon for assessment and direction. I was on hold for about 20 minutes when I finally just gave up and decided to take her to Emerge. I looked online at the emergency room wait times in the city. My preference, of course, is always to go to Alberta Children's Hospital because it provides the best suited care for children. However, the wait time at ACH was just under 4 hours. Foothills was also over 3 hours. So Alberta South Campus and Rocky View both had about 90-minute waits. I also noticed that South Campus had a dedicated children's doctor from 1 p.m. to 1 a.m. Although I live in the far northwest side of the city and there was severe rain on Monday, in fact, a state of emergency was called just a few hours later, I still thought it was best to drive across the city to South Campus so she could be assessed as soon as possible. We arrived just after 2 p.m., were triaged, got into a room by about 3 o'clock. We saw a doctor around 4 o'clock who ordered blood work and an ultrasound. Around 7:30 p.m., the doctor provided the diagnosis of appendicitis. She needed to have her appendix removed within hours. Typically, a patient has between 24 and 48 hours after pain begins until the appendix ruptures. This is unpredictable, so that means she didn't have much time. So the doctor phoned colleagues at the Alberta Children's Hospital to get her transferred immediately. At first, we were told it would be a 60-minute wait for transport to the ACH. The South Campus doctor continued to work with ACH to get her there faster and was considering private transport, meaning that I would drive her myself to the Children's Hospital. This would get her there in about 45 minutes rather than 2 hours. The doctor made multiple phone calls and eventually was told that the Children's Hospital could not perform the surgery within the appropriate time. He then contacted the on-call general surgeon at South Campus and asked him to perform the surgery. Thankfully, she went into the OR just after 9 p.m. on Monday night. I cannot speak highly enough of the team at South Campus. The staff was absolutely amazing and went out of their way to make us feel comfortable. When she went into the OR, we were originally told that there were no beds available for her and that she would have to spend the night in a recovery room. This meant that I could not stay with her because no support people are allowed in recovery. I don't know what happened or who pulled strings, but by the time she was out of the OR, they ended up opening up a bed for her, and I could stay with her through the night. I'm beyond grateful that my daughter had her appendectomy at South Campus, and I'm thankful for the work that healthcare providers have done during a time where the system is so very clearly overwhelmed. People keep telling me that we were lucky that we chose to go to South Campus, and we were lucky that we had amazing staff there, and we were lucky that they found a bed for her in the end. And we absolutely were. But here's the thing. Luck should never play a role in a good outcome when someone is faced with an urgent, life-threatening health concern. In a public healthcare system that is properly funded and staffed, you don't need luck. If no surgeon was available or able to perform the surgery on a 15-year-old at South Campus, she might have been transported and had to be transported to the Children's. We might not have been so lucky. If I had originally taken her to ACH and waited in a 4-hour queue and found out that they had no capacity and then had to wait another 60 minutes for transport to South Campus, we might not have been so lucky. On Tuesday, Rocky View General Hospital could not provide emergency surgeries overnight. This could have easily happened on Monday night, and if I had decided to go there instead of South Campus, we might not have been so lucky. This is not a normal situation. It is clear that doctors and hospital staff are overburdened. Imagine being a pediatric surgeon and knowing that you turned away a child who had just hours before her appendix ruptured. Imagine being the emergency room doctor who was scrambling to find a surgeon to perform that surgery. It's no wonder so many doctors are leaving Alberta. This is not sustainable and must be addressed. I know I'm not the only parent who has dealt with a situation like this, and my daughter is not the only patient to be to have been told that an emergency surgery cannot be provided. I encourage other Albertans to come forward and share their experiences. Your stories must be heard. And I urgently call on the UCP caucus to address these problems in our public healthcare system and do all they can to ensure that every Albertan can receive emergency surgeries when they need them, where they need them. No luck required. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paula, for sharing your experience. Let me begin, of course, by saying that I'm so relieved that your daughter did get the care she needed and that she's recovering. As a parent myself, I know how stressful that experience can be. Our family once had to rush our daughter to ER for appendicitis over 15 years ago. And 15 years ago, she was in the operating room within 15 minutes of arrival. So I hear you when you say that good health outcomes for Albertans should not be left to luck. And I'm deeply worried about the thousands of parents across this province this year alone who may have to endure the same experience for the kind of condition that we all assume can be addressed quickly and effectively to keep our children safe. So let's think on that for just a moment. Paula experienced a scary delay at HealthLink. She saw ER wait times well beyond what's considered acceptable anywhere. She saw delays to ambulance service that were so severe she was told she might have to consider driving her critically ill daughter herself. And she saw an entire hospital incapable of guaranteeing emergency surgery in time to save her daughter's life. This is not normal. This is not business as usual. And this UCP government needs to stop trying to convince Albertans that it is. There are currently 24 hospitals across the province that are partially closed due to staff shortages. We know from experience that this problem will get worse over the course of the summer. We have tragic delays in ambulance service in communities across the province arising from a shortage of paramedics. We have 40,000 people in the city of Lethbridge with no family doctor, and not a single doctor taking new patients in the Bow Valley corridor, not to mention in the many communities that have lost their doctor altogether. 140 doctors left the province last year alone, as this government's inability to negotiate fairly means that they are now going into their third year with no contract. Meanwhile, other important frontline staff are still being told they have to take wage cuts of up to 10%. Unsurprisingly, we're seeing staff shortages there too. And we have some of the largest hospitals in the province now diverting surgeries or becoming incapable of providing emergent surgery, as Paula just described. And in the midst of all of this, the UCP created more uncertainty and chaos by firing the CEO of AHS, who enjoyed the trust of many within the system. And further, with all this going on, we have a government that is budgeting to spend $800 million less this year than what they actually spent on healthcare last year. So the UCP has created an emergency. In the last healthcare emergency, the public healthcare emergency we just are coming out of, we saw the UCP undertake regular public reporting. So, today, we are calling on the Health Minister and the CEO of AHS to provide weekly updates to the people of Alberta detailing their actions and measured outcomes on the following: ER wait times, surgical diversions, ambulance wait times, doctor availability, hospital closures, HealthLink wait times, and frontline recruitment efforts. This is an emergency, and it is time that the UCP treat it like one. The most important thing any government can ever do is provide a healthcare system that is there for their citizens when they need it. This government almost failed Paula and her daughter and her family this week. They're failing so many Albertans day in and day out, and we are hearing from them every day. Put simply, the government simply must tell us how they will do better and then be held accountable to that. Thank you, and we'll be happy to take any of your questions.
Okay, we'll start with questions in person.
Just curious, do you have a timeline for reestablishing the standards that you spoke of? Getting the healthcare back to the standards you spoke of?
Well, I think it would be naive to say we could do it within this period of time or that period of time. But what we know is the way you get progress is by admitting there is a problem, being open and transparent about that problem, and then being accountable for the work that you are doing to solve the problem. That is the kind of relationship we saw between government officials and citizens during the COVID crisis. And I would argue that we're now in a position where we should have the same kind of relationship to deal with the emergency healthcare crisis that we're now facing across the province. So I would like to see them commence that work within the month. And then in terms of the timelines for getting towards acceptable service levels, we'll rely on the experts. But let's start having an open and transparent conversation with the experts about what we need to do to get there.
Did you have a follow-up? Okay, move to questions on the line. Just a reminder, if you're joining by Zoom, to use the raise hand function. If you're joining by phone, to press *9. And today we have time for one question and one follow-up. First question goes to Michelle Bellefontaine.
Yeah, Rachel, my apologies to Paula and her family. This is the first time, Rachel, you've been available since you sent out that letter to your NDP members yesterday. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about this independent review of the anti-harassment policy that you say has been underway since last fall. Who is doing that review?
Well, when we talk about independence, we're talking about two different things. So the executive reached out to a law firm. I'm not sure if I'd have to talk with them about whether they were part of it or not. But anyway, it's a law firm, and we can get back to you in the fall of 2021 to do a review of the harassment policy and the respect in the workplace policy that we've had in place in the party since 2014. So that started in 2021, and it was delivered to the executive early this spring. Separate from that, arising from the concerns that were raised in the letter received by the executive in March, the executive has also met and will be recommending to the council. So the decision hasn't been made yet. It will be discussed and recommended, and discussed and voted on this weekend. That we find a different independent body with expertise in investigating, mediating, and adjudicating respect and harassment complaints in organizations. So the idea then is to follow up on one of the asks that was included in that letter to provide a safer place for people to raise concerns about experiences that they are having as they engage within our party.
Did you have a follow-up, Michelle?
Yeah, I do. So this is going to be discussed at your provincial council this weekend. I'm wondering if so far that we can expect any personnel changes coming as a result of these investigations, personal changes particularly with the NDP, the party itself, the party office.
Well, let me begin by saying, of course, that we know in the NDP that our volunteers are the absolute bedrock of our party. They have been for almost ever. Party's about 2 years older than I am, and we have been here this long because of the committed work of volunteers over decades and decades. And it is so important to me that our volunteers feel the appreciation and the importance that they represent to each other and to everybody within the party, paid and unpaid. So in terms of personnel things, we are also a party that believes very strongly in the rights of working people. We have a collective agreement in place with our personnel, and we also have respect in the workplace rules that they get to rely on. And so part of following those rules is that we're not going to discuss individual HR matters in public. But suffice to say, the larger issues around ensuring that our members can guarantee that they get the respect that they deserve will be fully discussed at Provincial Council.
Okay, thanks. We'll go to our next caller. Caller, your line should be open.
Hi, this is Lisa Johnson from the Edmonton Journal. Sorry, this is another off-topic question. We're just being told that from his representative that Thomas Dang is no longer under criminal investigation and will not face criminal charges for testing and reporting some security vulnerabilities in the government website. Apparently, he's going to face a monetary fine for contravening a portion of the Health Information Act, but the fine hasn't been issued. I'm wondering if this changes. You've always said that the party would not allow a candidate to go through the vetting process if they're still under criminal investigation. Now that he appears to not be, does that change the party's course? Do you expect his papers to be signed?
Well, certainly in terms of his role in the caucus, I'm just hearing this as we talk about it now, and so we'll look to get more information about the whole picture, and certainly I'll be talking about this with the caucus executive, and we'll be able to get back to folks once we have a clear picture. And the same would apply to the folks on our provincial executive who are tasked with approving candidates. They'll take a look at the revised situation and get all the details and then make a decision there.
Follow-up, Lisa?
Sure, yeah, just to go back to this issue of these allegations of mistreatment and your email to party volunteers, who's conducting the third-party investigation? Are you going to be releasing the details of that investigation, its recommendations, publicly?
What we are going to be doing, should the Provincial Council agree with the motion that we are sending to Provincial Council, is we will be seeking and hiring an independent firm to engage in receipt of complaints, investigations, and as well as mediation and or any other recommendations or adjudications that might flow from it. People with experience in ensuring that folks who have concerns around respect as well as and lack of respect, as well as more significant concerns in the workplace, who have the ability to address that. So we'll wait and see what the Provincial Council decides, and then folks will know who the people are.
Okay, next question goes to Dean Bennett.
Thanks. Hi, Rachel. So just on this review, it sounds like you're hiring this law firm for complaints that are going to be moving forward. However, I'm looking at the letter from these 15 presidents. That's not what they asked for. They asked for an independent review into reported instances of disrespect or mistreatment. They want an independent review into what has happened over the last while with your party. Why will you not give them that independent review? And I think we know why, I guess we can guess why they want an independent review, or maybe you can tell me why they want an independent review. Why do they not want the people on staff right now investigating what happened?
I'm not quite sure. Certainly my understanding is that what folks were looking for was that our harassment policy be strengthened, frankly, in a number of ways, but one of them including that the recipient of complaints and the folks who do the investigations and the reviews be independent. I don't recall a request that there be a retroactive review of any of the complaints that had happened before, but I will say that if there were any complaints that happened before that people wanted to be reconsidered with the independent process, I think we'd be quite open to allowing that to happen. It's certainly not being precluded. And again, as I say before, as I've said in my email, Dean, you know, we really rely on our volunteers. We respect our volunteers. We care about the work that they do. We know how important they are to the party. The party is our volunteers. So we're working as hard as we can, and it's my responsibility to make sure that we have systems in place that people feel safe about using, and that meet the independence requirement that ensures that feeling of safety. And so that's what we're hoping to be able to offer up to folks after the weekend. But again, it's the Provincial Council that ultimately will make those decisions.
Did you have a follow-up there, Dean?
Yeah, well, sorry, Rachel, it's a bit bizarre. I mean, it's right there in black and white in the letter. We want a review, so I'm not quite sure where the disconnect comes from on that. I'm heartened by the fact that you know, at your newser today, you're talking about transparency and accountability, because yeah, we all agree if anyone who's in government or is seeking the public trust should do that. So, how much are we going to find out here about what's going on with the treatment of your volunteers? So specifically, we don't need names, we don't need specific instances, we don't want to breach, you know, privacy reasons, but I think people do deserve to know what you have found broadly in terms of what is happening with your volunteers. What is happening, why, because obviously you found it because it's in your email, they're being mistreated, there are instances where you've fallen short. What has happened here that has caused you to say that? Are we talking about people being verbally abused in a workplace? Are we talking about people being verbally abused in group settings? Please, you know, and if you don't think that you have a responsibility to explain that, then that's fine. Please explain why you don't feel like the public needs to know what's happening here.
Well, honestly, Dean, at this point, I think most of the issues that are at issue are already in the public sphere, but there may be more that come once we're able to put in a process that would give people a sense of security and safety. So in large degree, I can't even speak to what may come from people coming forward. I will, however, also say that when folks come to us and say, we want a safe place to be able to raise our concerns, the idea that it would then be something that is specifically broadcast to people that are not members of the party may in fact inhibit their desire to actually participate, and that may be a consideration. I think all these sort of parameters are things that we'll have to talk about at Provincial Council. This is a membership-led thing at the end of the day. As leader, I've been working very hard to make sure that we can put something in front of folks. As leader, I know at the end of the day this is my responsibility, but I also have to allow for the membership to engage in some of those the answers to some of those questions. So we'll have more to say, I'm sure, after council.
Okay, and that concludes today's press conference. Thanks, folks.
Thank you so much for watching, and to learn more, check out albertasfuture.ca.